Hi guys, I think you're really going to love this episode because it's that information that many photographers want to know, and it's about pricing your photography, how much to charge for your work. Now, how much should you charge for your photos is a common question that I get asked all the time, and it's not without good reason. Pricing your work can be challenging. It requires finding a balance. You don't want to underprice your work, or you might end up making a loss or being perceived as low quality, but you also don't want to overcharge, as you could easily lead to clients going elsewhere. Now, as someone who's been in the business for 25 years, trust me when I say running a successful photography business requires much more than just talent. It requires hard work, dedication, business savvy as well. And part of this business savvy is knowing what to charge for your photography. Now, professional photographers can be grouped into two categories: commercial photography and social photography. Now, depending on which one of these categories you fall into, the way you structure your pricing may vary. Now, a commercial product photographer, for example, may get fewer jobs per year and therefore charge more than, say, a social photographer who's working every week or every day. Commercial photographers may also require more equipment and studio facilities than social photographers do, but they may travel less. So what is commercial photography? Well, commercial photographers such as myself take photos purely for commercial purposes. We deal with business to business relationships, and we don't generally get involved working for individuals. Commercial photography covers everything from fashion photography to product photography, and it's used for advertising purposes, editorials, annual reports, and commercial photographers generally charge by the day or half-day rates per project, and sometimes usage fees as well. What is social photography? Well, unlike commercial photographers, social photographers deal with a consumer relationship. This means they work directly with individuals and the general public. Social photography includes things like weddings, events, portraits, families, or couples photography. Now, some social photographers charge by the hour, but day rates for projects are also common. But generally they're working on upselling, which is a big part of social photographers' work. They rely on additional income from selling extra prints, frames, albums, etc. as well. Now, due to the nature of each photographer, they'll have their own needs for equipment, studio space, travel expenses, etc. And the costs associated with those will vary. Now, this is part of the reason why so many people find it difficult to price their work. There's no easy, straightforward answer. Each requires a tailored approach for each type of photographer. So, my photography pricing guide. Well, regardless of whether you're a commercial or social photographer, your aim as a business owner should be the same, and that is to make a profit. Now, this may sound obvious, but this is where many photographers fall short. Too often they think the only thing they need is skill, but in reality, good business sense is equally important, if not more important. Put simply, to work out your pricing, you need to consider how much you'd like to make per year, and then factor in how much work you're willing or able to do in that year. Now, we have a great blog post on karltayloreducation.com that has some formulas for calculating your expenses and revenue needed. Now, that basic formula can provide a guideline for working out how much money you need to make. Now, this will include business costs, outside services, your earnings, your profit, and taxes, and this will equal your total revenue needed. So let's break each of these things up to give you a clearer idea. First of all, business costs. Business costs are the costs of running your business. This will include things like your wages, your studio rent, your equipment, your annual rates, your advertising expenditure, your insurance, your travel, and various miscellaneous costs. Now, to calculate business costs, try creating a detailed spreadsheet with any and all associated costs with running your business. This will provide an accurate account of all the costs that you're going to incur. Outside services are something that you don't provide yourself but can be considered part of your business costs. For example, retouching, CGI work, models, stylists, makeup, printing, all of those things are outside services, and keeping a track of those can be done using a job sheet, which is included also in our business section and on our blog as well. Now, your own actual earnings are very important. This is what you'd like to earn for your work. And this is what will make the 6-day weeks and the 12-hour days and the day-to-day stresses worth it. Profit. Nobody goes into business just to break even. Think about how much you'd like to make and try to add this to the equation. Remember, turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. Another thing you need to consider is taxes. Unfortunately, we all have to pay our taxes. So let's consider this very simplified and basic example. Let's say your business costs are $58,500 per year. Let's say your earnings that you want to earn are $60,000 per year, and your profit that you'd like to make is $20,000, and your taxes are $12,000. Therefore, the total revenue needed to meet all of that is $150,500. Now, to calculate your project pricing, divide the total by the number of working weeks in a year. If we assume that you'd like to take 3 weeks holiday a year, that would leave you 49 working weeks in a year. So the total figure of $150,500 divided by 49 equals 3,071. This is what you need to make in sales per week to cover your total business expenditure and earnings. From this point, you would need to consider how many jobs you can actually fit in per week. A portrait photographer, for example, may have to undertake 3 or 4 shoots to cover this, while a commercial product photographer may only have to do 1 or 2 shoots. Now, this pie chart gives a great visual representation of some of the costs that I've just demonstrated. Now, it is very simplified. Obviously, there'll be many other extra expenses you need to include in there as well, things like telephone, miscellaneous office bills, maintenance, things like that as well. But it gives you an idea of the process and what you need to think about to formulate your expenses and your profit and your total revenue required. Now, we've gone one step further than that. We've actually created a pricing calculator that allows you to input some figures and slide them around to work stuff out. So let's take a look at that. So on our blog, you'll find a blog post about our pricing calculator. And here it is. And it's very simple and easy to use. And it's actually too simplified, but it's there to give you an idea of things you need to think about. So on the first slider, we have your studio rent or your monthly mortgage payments. Let's pretend that your studio rent was $2,000 per month. So we'll put that in on the slider or thereabouts. Let's assume that your studio facilities, electricity, water, internet, telephone, those sort of things were coming in at about $320 a month. Your advertising costs may be coming in at about $1,000 per month when you consider your telephone, internet advertising, your newspaper, press article advertising. So let's put that in at $1,000 per month. Internet services, website hosting, maintenance, those sort of things. Let's put $100 per month. Miscellaneous costs, banking, professional fees, accounting, that sort of thing. Let's tally that up to being about $300 per month. And then let's assume that you want to pay yourself, I don't know, let's go a little bit higher. Let's say you want to make sure that you pay yourself at least $5,100 per month. Now, what will your hourly rate be? So if you put in an hourly rate, let's say you were able to charge around about $200 an hour for your services, then let's look at the results. So your total outgoings are shown in this box, and that's showing that monthly your costs would be $8,800 $825. Now that equates to 10 billable hours per week. So using the slider example that we've got on our blog there, you can see that you're going to need to bill 10 hours per week at that hourly rate to meet those costs. Now, whilst this example is quite rudimental, it does give you a good idea of how sort of business flows and ebbs with costs and expenses, revenue and earnings. So it's well worth playing around with this slider to get yourself familiar with how to configure and think about your business operating costs. So you can find that slider over on carltayloreducation.com on our blog. Now, this formula, along with the simple examples that I've just discussed, should give you a good idea of how to start calculating your pricing. Now, if you're still not sure, it's also worth considering what your competitors are charging, as this should give you an idea of whether you're over or undercharging. But keep in mind their costs may be different to yours. Your level of experience is also something to think about. If you're an experienced photographer, you may be able to charge higher prices than someone who's just starting out. Chances are you'll have more equipment, maybe a studio of your own, an assistant, not to mention greater knowledge and a greater level of skill, all of which clients will generally be willing to pay for. So let's talk about types of pricing. Once you've determined how much you should be charging, you need to think about how you'll present that pricing to your client. The most common method among professional photographers is to choose a day rate, but there are a few other options too. Now, day rates or half-day rates are the preferred method of charging for many professional commercial photographers, including myself. A day rate covers the cost of your time for that day or half day's work. However, it does not account for additional costs such as assistant fees, additional images, post-production time, usage fees, and other services. So for my day rate, if I'm using an assistant, I'll be charging extra for the assistant. If there's additional post-production work, we'll be charging extra for that on top of the day rate. Now, the other charging method is per job, which can be suitable for larger projects. Quoting per job takes into consideration how many hours or days it will take you to complete the job, and it includes any additional costs that may be incurred. This allows you to put forward one fixed price for the overall project. The other method is hourly. This method of pricing is more common amongst student or amateur photographers, though some portrait and event photographers may also charge by the hour. Charging for your time by the hour, photographers generally add the additional costs separately afterwards. Another method is per image. This is commonly used when shooting things like packed shots, and it's charged per picture. For example, a product photographer may charge £5 for an image of 100 items at £5 each, or £2 per image for 500 items. So it's all to do with scale and quantity. But for this type of photography, it's usually very easy to replicate and reproduce e-commerce type imagery. Another thing is usage fees. Usage fees, also known as licensing fees, are what a client pays to use your images, and they're based on the amount of use or exposure that that image is going to get and how long the images are going to be used for. Usage fees are usually only applicable for bigger jobs and bigger clients, and adding them to work done for smaller clients will only create confusion, and it isn't usually worth the hassle. But on large-scale advertising campaigns and projects, photographers like myself and product and advertising and fashion photographers will often be able to charge usage fees too. Now, what do professional photographers charge? As I mentioned earlier, when working out your pricing, it's worth taking the time to find out what other photographers are charging. However, you need to be realistic with this. Keep in mind their location, their specialization, the level of experience, as these will all have an impact on their pricing. So I've outlined some general rates that you might expect for professional photographers. So top product photographers, who generally charge a commercial day rate, can charge maybe around £3,000 or $5,000 per day, and prices for high-end product and advertising photographers, people like Jonathan Knowles or Peter Lipman, are usually even higher, and these will have additional usage fees applied to their work as well. Now, we cover more about usage fees and how they work in our business section on Karl Taylor Education, so make sure to go and check that out too. High quality wedding photographers can cost up to £2,000 per day, that's about $2,500 per day, and even award-winning photographers, that's award-winning wedding photographers, they can charge much more, maybe £5,000 or $7,000 per day. Portrait photographers may work for as little as just a few $100s for a family or group shot shoot, and they may try and shoot 2 or 3 of these per day and be able to make a decent living. Top portrait photographers may be able to charge £2,000 for a shoot, and top celebrity portrait photographers may be commissioned at much higher rates, anywhere up to $8,000 or $10,000 per day. Unfortunately, there's no definitive guide when it comes to what to charge for your work, but what I've discussed here today should offer you a good starting point. So take the time to go through some of the costs of running your business and think objectively about your level of experience and level of skill and what you have to offer the client. Don't allow yourself to make the common mistake of undervaluing your work or your time, and make sure to consider all of the costs associated with the job. It's also worth considering your pricing from time to time, and not just to account for inflation. As the years go by, your skills as a photographer should hopefully improve, and your techniques improves, your knowledge grows, you'll be able to offer more to your clients and therefore be able to charge more. As photographers, we never know everything, and it's important that we keep learning and improving. Taking the time to invest in yourself as a photographer will pay off in the future, and you'll find your confidence and skills growing. Remember, if you're looking for ways to practice and improve, our classes offer a wide selection of topics suitable for any skill level. They offer an opportunity to follow along and understand the techniques which you can then put into practice. We also have a large volume of business skills and business marketing and pricing within our business section on karltayloreducation.com.